Hello, everyone. A priest walks into a bar, and the bar owner is so conscientious that before he can sit down, they practically have his Guinness poured. No, that's not the start of a joke. That's actually my experience any given night when I visit a local establishment called the Thirsty Pig. It's owned by a local woman named Kerry Farrell, who here in Dothan, Alabama, has used her gifts of hospitality to create a space that many people want to go and hang out and make wonderful new friendships and encounters on any given night. Anyway, we had a wonderful conversation. She came in and we were able to talk a little bit about her story, the story of the Thirsty Pig, and how that came together and how it's going, and why those gifts of hospitality aren't celebrated enough in our culture today. But they're very vital because they are helping to reverse the trend that many of us suffer under of being so disconnected from each other. Anyway, join us. All right.
Here I am.
Okay. Thank you for coming and being willing to talk to me. I knew I wanted to have, as soon as I moved to Dothan, there was a couple of hangout places I was able to go right away. Folklore is one, and then people were telling me you have to go to the Thirsty Pig. And these hangout places were places I gravitated to right away to be comfortable, feel at home, and meet wonderful people. And right away, I knew once the idea of a podcast started germinating in my brain, I thought, well, these are going to be conversations within the community. I'm hoping I can get a local bar owner to come and talk to me. And so
Here I am.
Well, it's the Mount Everest. I mean, it's the pinnacle of being able to talk to a local bar owner here.
Yeah.
And let me preface it with this. Then I'm going to ask you to kind of introduce yourself, but let me kind of start with why I wanted to have this conversation. Years ago, and I don't want to talk too much about this. I want you to talk. But years ago, when I was in seminary, I had a class on the doctrine of the church, and you have all these different doctrine classes as you're going through seminary. And one of the books that was available wasn't assigned, but one of the books that was available that was on a drop-down list of books to choose from to write a paper about the doctrine of the church was a book called "Pour Your Heart Into It." The biography of the Starbucks coffee company. And I asked the professor, why in the world is that on this list? He said, it's just on the list. You do with it what you want. I dove into it and I realized that there was something about this coffee shop phenomenon that was tapping into basic human need. Because and whether or not Starbucks reflects this anymore, we can argue that, but I don't know that they do. But early on, they said the early philosophy and the early causes for their success were two things. One, they wanted to always be something that they were known as a gourmet coffee company. I don't know if anyone knows them as that anymore, but early on, they want to be known as the gourmet coffee company. We know what's the good stuff. We don't want to serve our coffee on a transcontinental flight where it's going to be burning on the stove for an hour, and people are going to associate bad coffee with our brand name. So they always wanted to be a gourmet coffee company. That was one thing, was quality control. The second one was they wanted to be what they called the third place. Now, sociologists use these terms because their first place is home, second place is work, and the third place is that place of voluntary association that you don't have to be. You're there voluntarily to be around friends, around other people, but there's nothing compelling you to be there other than you just want to be for your social network. And I, years ago, had gotten, and this was the catalyst to my paper in the Doctrine of the Church, about how deficient sometimes churches tend to be about being the third place. It fell apart at some point. People come, they have their rituals, they leave. Which tends to make me kind of always looking at someone who's successful at creating the third place, wanting to pick their brain at how that happened. So when I go to, you see where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I go to places like folklore, specifically the Thirsty Pig, I'm like, you're tapping into something that people really need. That's why they show up. And so that was an example of third place done really well. And I feel like I'm curious about that. I feel like the church benefits from hearing that story. So having said all that and kind of getting, I really want to shut up for a little bit and just kind of let you talk about, one, could you tell us a little bit about Well, introduce yourself, give a little bit of biography as much as you're comfortable with giving, but then I'd like to hear about your story, how it leads up to the story of the thirsty pig and how it is what it is right now. Please.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay. So I'm Kerry Farrell. I own the Thirsty Pig. We opened in January of 2017, and we're in downtown Dothan.
Okay.
We've been watching a lot of change with downtown Dothan as it's being revitalized, and we're thrilled to be down there and be a part of that. That's really cool. I actually, in 2016, was sitting out at Folklore having a couple beers, and I had 2 beers, and I really wanted that third one, but I knew I needed to drive.
Right.
And I said to my friend that I was having a beer with, man, I wish there was one of these closer to my house.
Okay.
And that's kind of sort of what planted the seed. I was doing events for somebody else at the time, and it just kind of stuck in the back of my head that I kind of wanted to do this maybe closer to where I lived.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how it was born. Just a love of beer, and when you go to Folklore or you go to the Pig, it's just kind of a laid back vibe. It's kind of like you're hanging out in your friend's backyard.
Right.
And that's all I wanted to do, was create that sort of comfortable space for people to enjoy a beer and each other.
Okay.
Sometimes we have music, sometimes we have trivia, sometimes we have, I don't know, you name it. We've had it, I think. We've had everything there, but it's just a cool place for people to hang out and enjoy themselves. And
so that was in 2016?
Yeah.
What was the process whereby you found property, knew what your concept was going to be? It looks like it's had a number of different building projects over the time.
It has certainly grown and expanded. I bought the cheapest building that was available downtown at the time, and it was a little metal building. It still is a little metal building, and there was really no backyard to speak of. I did own a food truck, so we just parked that and said, well, if the bar part doesn't work, we'll just drive the food truck off into the sunset and do something else. But fortunately, it has worked, and through time, we've expanded the backyard. We've added a stage. We've added covered seating, all of the fun stuff. We even have a mural, since Dothan is the mural city.
Right.
We have a mural with pigs on it in the backyard, and we even have one of those peanut pigs out front. All in.
Well, I've tried to ask people, are all the peanuts documented throughout Dothan? I don't think they are.
I don't think they are, because there's been some renegade peanuts.
It needs to be a scavenger hunt for people to find them all. But when I try to describe it to people, it's very difficult, because when I say, okay, it is a bar, but it's also a family place. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's dogs there where people have their water dishes. I see children running around, and it kind of defies description in some ways, because you have your inside space where people can chat and talk. And how many taps do you have?
15.
15?
15 taps.
And you got to keep the numbers straight. I mean, so.
Sure.
But I mean, do people just say number 12 or
sometimes.
Okay.
But it's typically the first 4 beers are IPAs. We rotate all the beers all the time. There's very few that we keep on all the time. Guinness being the one exception. We always keep Guinness, do a proper pour of that. But we usually have 4 IPAs, 4 dark beers, 2 sours, a cider, and then some miscellaneous light drinking stuff.
Okay.
And when people come in, a lot of times they don't know what we have, because we have very obscure, small microbreweries, and we're selling their products. So you may never have heard of that particular beer.
Right.
But we always let people sample and sort of figure out what they might enjoy. Get to try it before you buy it, sort of thing.
So you started on that one building, but over time it became obvious that you needed to expand, build out into the yard, because it looks like that's happened in stages.
It has.
Right.
It has. Just this past March, we added a cover over the entire backyard. So now if it's raining or whatever the weather's doing, we're protected from that.
I think I got here just in time then.
Yeah. It's raining every day, I think.
Oh, goodness. Well, it's funny, because for me, if I can sit outside with my pipe and it's good weather, and it's so funny, because it seems like now I've been there just enough times that the Guinness is like half poured before I can find my seat, which is wonderful. It's exactly how you want it being, feeling totally at home. Now that you've had that covered space, any weather, people are enjoying, like you said, karaoke from different, who was it that played Friday night? Who was the
Oh, Smoke and Steel, I think, played.
Smoke and
It was a
Steel?
bluegrass band.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then,
that was wonderful.
yeah,
And then the karaoke with the Dothan soccer
Dothan
team,
Dragons, sure. We had an
right?
open mic night last week, and we're just always doing whatever someone presents to me and says, "Hey, you want to do this?" My answer is yes. Before I even figure out the logistics, yes, of course we'll figure it out.
Now, are you a native to Dothan?
I'm not. I'm from northeastern Ohio,
Really?
born and raised outside of Cleveland, on a
Okay.
farm in a rural section of Ohio.
So what's that? So that's I've got Christmas story vibes coming.
Yeah.
But so what's that migration story going from Cleveland to here?
A big difference. I mean, when I was growing up, my dad would take me to the bar. My mom worked night shift, and so when she was trying to get some sleep, my dad would get me out of the house. But where would he take me? He took me to the pub.
Right.
So I'm a little kid running around a pub. That's kind of one of my earliest memories of being in a bar.
Right.
But in Ohio, it was very normal to take your kids to a bar because they serve food and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We moved down here, and that was not the case.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to create a family-friendly bar. I really don't even call it a bar. It's a tap room. It's a place. It's not really a bar.
I contend that there are 4 classifications because this is the nerd in me. So there are bars, saloons, taverns, and pubs.
Mm.
And based upon atmosphere and interior decorating and what bands you book, but there is some overlap. But I contend that when people oftentimes might on these far ends of those spectrums, people might not think of taking your child to a bar, call CPS right away.
Sure.
But then on the other end, anyone who understands pub culture realizes, oh, that's very natural.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in those gradations of, oh no, this is where I meet people and everybody's together. It's a very healthy environment. And so when people say, well, I go to a bar, I'm like, well, you're going to have to be more specific.
Right. So we're definitely a pub.
Right.
Short for public house. We're a pub, and that's where people go to hang out, and that's us.
Right. So what brought you to Dothan from Cleveland?
Well, actually, my husband's job brought us here. My husband is the director of music at St. Columba, the Catholic Church.
Okay.
So that's how we ended up here. And, we might be in the Baptist Bible Belt, but
right.
when you're the wife of a Catholic organist, you can own a bar. And
right.
There's no problem,
Well, and so he was acquainted with he was called basically from Cleveland, from Ohio to here.
Yeah, there was a small stop in Florida. We were in South Florida actually before directly moving here.
Okay.
We were in a retirement area of South Florida. It was beautiful. It was lovely. But at that time, we had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old.
I see.
And like in the church, there was very few families. And we just kind of wanted to be a place where there was younger kids, more families, more stuff for the kids to do.
Right.
And my husband looked at several cities and was recruited. And actually, Dothan made a strong push. And, well, here we are, because it's a lovely town and it's a great community. And it's just so welcoming and friendly.
Well, it's right in. Well, I had a wonderful conversation with Mayor Saliba here, and we were talking about Dothan is in something of that sweet spot where it is the way he described it. It's small enough that it's a great place to raise a family and to feel at home and feel safe, but it's just large enough that you have things to do on Friday night.
Sure.
And so people have options to go out, and there's not just sit there and stare at the one stoplight in town from the movie Cars. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it seemed like my hometown to me, because I grew up in a town, Redding, California, way up north, that was about this size when I was growing up. Now it's grown beyond that, and it's changed in character so much that I wouldn't probably recognize it. But this, to the extent that you can be nostalgic for your hometown, this seems a lot like that. But now, for yourself, you came here as he's the director of music at St. Columba, and then when was that?
That was in 2002.
2002. So
yeah.
You're here 14 years before before this time. Like I need that family pub experience, but I needed it closer into town. So
Right. So when we moved here, the kids were 2 and 3, did the stay-at-home mom thing for a while, and then ended up with a public relations gig at the Wiregrass Area Food Bank, which was fun.
uh-huh.
Ended up working for Dothan Magazine for a while,
Really?
and then started doing event planning, the main event, and did that for a number of years. Put on large-scale festivals, and I enjoyed that experience of the community coming together.
Okay.
I created a barbecue festival / Oktoberfest. It was called Porktobercue. It was really cool for about 5 years, and but I always enjoyed the people listening to music and drinking beer and having a good time
Uh-huh.
as a community, and it was absent to me outside of festivals and special events. I was like, man, can't we do this all the time?
Right.
And so that's why the Thirsty Pig is very eventy. There's always something going on.
How did you decide on the name?
That's a strange and long story.
We got a little bit of time.
So our daughter was in band, and I want to say it was probably 2015. And every year the different bands, the high school bands, will have a booth out at Peanut Festival to raise funds for the bands. And Northview High School at the time had Chick-fil-A. They'd had Chick-fil-A at the Peanut Festival forever. And that particular year, the owner sold, and a new owner was coming in, and they did not offer Chick-fil-A to the Northview band at Peanut Festival. So the band parents had a big meeting. They said, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We don't have Chick-fil-A this year. And the percussion instructor at Northview High School, Marcus Jordan, and we both knew that we liked to barbecue. And, we're fanatical about barbecue and barbecue shows and talking about rubs and spices and sauces. And so he and I sat down and we said, we can make barbecue. We can do this. We can smoke pork. It'll be great. And people kept saying, oh, it's the name recognition. We want that Chick-fil-A name. And if here it was, Mrs. Farrell and Mr. Jordan cooking barbecue, there was no name recognition. So Marcus and I sat down one afternoon. We said, what are we going to cook? We're going to make up a restaurant name to sell this barbecue at the Peanut Festival for the band boosters.
Okay.
And he said, well, Miss Kerry, we don't have a lot in common. You're from the North, I'm from the South. I'm a man, you're a woman. I'm black, you're white. And I said, well, we both like barbecue and we
Right.
both like beer.
Uh-huh.
And so out of that, we figured Thirsty Pig. And so we went out to the Peanut Festival with the band boosters. We had signs made that said award-winning barbecue from the Thirsty Pig, because we actually both had won some awards in backyard competitions and stuff. And people were standing in line saying, oh yeah, I've heard of that place. It's great. We got to get the barbecue.
Like you have never heard of this place. We just made it up.
We just made it up. So, marketing, a little bit of marketing knowledge goes a long way. But fast forward a couple years, and I decided to open this place up. And, I wasn't sure what to call it. Our last name's Farrell, and we were going to fill growlers, which was a new concept for Dothan. And I thought, well, maybe we'll call it Farrell's Filling Station, or, just
Right.
coming up with names. Called a buddy of mine and said, man, come over here and brainstorm with me. And I said, I want a cute pig, not like an aggressive pig. And I was going through my computer and said, a pig like this. And I pulled up the old Thirsty Pig logo. He's like, duh, there's your answer right there. There's the name. Call it the Thirsty Pig. And so then I called Marcus and said, hey, you mind if I steal that name? We're going to open up a place. And
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, but I can see a through thread in your ventures related to, well, one, food, there's beer, but there's really this hospitality side to it, which is interesting because in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul actually lists those as among the spiritual gifts. This idea of someone having the gift of hospitality, and not to get too nerdy about this, but spiritual gifts, theologians will have debated whether or not those are natural talents just to someone's, in someone's normal constitution, or are they divinely enabled? So is a spiritual gift just something you have, or is it something that is enabled by, is it something that is enabled by God for benefits far exceeding what is naturally explainable? And specifically, the ground zero application of that type of study is, what does something need in the church? What does a local church need? And God will supply it in order to be able to supply people with these spiritual gifts in order to make the local body very healthy. But I do think, though, that thinking specifically the fact that you came here because your husband's name is Daniel?
Dan, yeah.
Dan, because he's contributing to the beauty of local worship, which is very much a ministry. It's a spiritual function, right? So that brings you here, and then you have this hospitality instinct as well. And so far, the few times I've been there, I mean, that's how I met all those guys from the Knights of St. Columbus.
The Knights of Columbus.
Knights
sure,
of Columbus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was invited to that dinner as well. It's like there's a sense in which that gift of hospitality is still facilitating, even though supposedly people wouldn't say that Thirsty Pig is part of a church campus. I would say that instinct is still facilitating a lot of healthy things happening for churches, because so many people who attend here are going and finding their fellowship in that arena. They're going to your establishment and building those relationships, building those friendships. And look where it took me. I wound up at the seminary dinner, making new friends there.
Right.
So it's not obvious to me at all that your instinct for hospitality isn't being divinely helped along.
Well, that's cool. I never thought of that, but that's pretty awesome.
I think that there's a sense in which just about anything that would see humans flourishing, that encourages the flourishing of humans, that mitigates suffering. These things, I think, are a way of God's grace to being deployed to people also. And so when hospitality instincts are being brought to bear like that, I think that's something, it's not just tolerable, it's extremely positive, and we don't celebrate it enough. And it's no surprise to me at all that so many from St. Columba wind up at Thirsty Pig, not just because of their association with you and Dan, but just because I think that's a natural human instinct. I came from a church. I was trained in churches in Houston when I was there for a time. I served at a couple of Anglican churches there that had hospitality as a big function. And many people chuckle because the churches I served at in Houston, Shiner Bock was the official beer of the Reformed Episcopal Church in Texas.
Nice.
And two that I served at had a keg in the kitchen. And so people say, you have a keg in your kitchen at your church? Well, I'm like, of course you don't.
Right. Who doesn't? At least it was Shiner and not Lone Star. So,
Well, I mean, quality controls here. We have to keep
go.
things, this is for divine use. You got to use the good stuff. And so, so far here, I've just been discussing with people here at the church, like, what do you think we should land on? And I said, I don't know if it would be Shinerbach here. And people are discussing perhaps different labels from folklore or others. And I'm like, what should we wind up with? Because people think, are you really, that's what you're thinking? Yes, of course. We're serious about investing in fellowship, investing in that hospitality instinct.
Sure. It's so important. It's so important for people to be present with each other.
Right.
We're so used to just staring at a little device in our hand.
Isn't that just toxic?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
If people are sitting at my bar, I try to engage them in conversation. Sometimes they don't want to, but just to get them to put the phone down. Like, put the phone down. Talk to me for a minute. I think it's great.
I met a gentleman last couple of nights ago when I was there. I was sitting at the bar, and I engaged a gentleman who works at Fort Rucker. And I was so glad that neither one of us had our devices out, and we just turned and made a friendship and started having a chat that way. Total stranger, but it's facilitating those type of human connections.
Yes.
And I mean, that's, again, something that someone who's in church looks over at, a place of hospitality like Thirsty Pig, who's exercising almost a spiritual gift of hospitality, and says, my goodness, how can we learn from that?
I don't know. We have had wonderful, people who have met at the Pig have become friends, good friends. We've had several.
Are you a matchmaker?
We've had several people whose first date was at the Thirsty Pig
Really?
who got married. We have like wedding pictures on the wall and stuff. We actually have one couple who met at the Pig who got married at the Pig.
Oh, wow.
So, I can't count the birthday parties. We're just like, come on, have your event here. Just come on, bring it.
So my Darlene and I were married in Houston, and our wedding reception was at a concert slash honky tonk bar venue that we used to go to called the Redneck Country Club. And COVID closed it, and I'm still bitter about that. But they had on their front porch the actual cars, well, not the actual cars, but replicas of the cars from Smoking the Bandit and the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
And the porch area was all had these lawn chairs. And it was just absolutely wonderful. So you imagine her family's from the Philippines, and so they were there experiencing our wedding reception at the Redneck Country Club, and it's like, what are you doing here? Well, I have a love relation. It's not a love-hate relationship. I have absolute affectionate relationship with establishments like this that create the third place. I will do more weddings in my career, but so far I've done 2.
Okay.
And both of which were for firefighters, because I'm a fire chaplain for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And my last one was held at a honky tonk in Houston, not the Redneck Country Club, but another one outside of town called Tin Hall. And I'm there in the collar. I'm there, in my black suit, prayer, Book of Common Prayer that we use to offer to conduct our prayer, to conduct the service. And over my shoulders, of course, the Shiner Bock and Michelob Light, neon signs. And people have images of that, and they're thinking, what am I watching right now? What's this image? How do I interpret this? And so I came away from that. It actually spawned a really fun talk about what I refer to as spontaneous sacred space, because as an archaeologist, I'm all about spatial specificity, and why is it that people create architecture in this area is sacred, and it creates sacred space that's different from every other common space. But sometimes sacred space isn't always architectural. Sometimes it's spontaneous. And I use the example of the burning bush from Exodus. There's nothing special about the back end of the wilderness of Midian behind Mount Horeb, behind Mount Sinai, where God shows up to meet Moses there. There is no temple already erected. There's nothing. It's just that's where he chose to meet him. And when God's the fire, any old bush will do. And so, but that's the idea of spontaneous sacred space, because it becomes sacred where it is that the sacred thing occurs.
Okay.
And in that moment, that bar was not a bar. It was sacralized as the place where the wedding occurred. Now, once I was done, they moved the chairs out of the way, and that's where the dancing is going to take place. But in that moment, it's instantiated that we created sacred space in a kind of a spontaneous fashion in that area. And I think that's something similar for the Thirsty Pig, because the sacred interactions of friendships, of anyone sharing. Sometimes people are sharing their faith, but people are always sharing their faith in their personality, in their lives. Sure. That's a sacred interaction too, and you're facilitating that. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Did I think about it differently than you?
No, that's cool. It's a great way to think about it. One of the first days I was open, a lady came in, had not been back, I don't think. And she just looked at me and said, "You were born to do this." I'm like, I don't know, lady. It was just an idea, and I had at one point while I was drinking a beer. So,
right.
But it kind of does feel that way sometimes. It's very easy and comfortable, and I enjoy letting people meeting each other.
Right.
I kind of visualize it in this weird way. Like each of us has a tiny thread
Mm-hmm.
connected to us, and as we meet each other and sort of weave our little threads together, we kind of make that tapestry that we call community.
Right.
So I enjoy getting people to interact with other people, and trivia night's a great example. People will come in and maybe there's only 2 of them, and they'll just plop down with total strangers and play trivia, but leave friends sometimes.
Well, and think about the people that have met, the friendships that have been formed, even the people that have dated, people that got married. Those were the importance of those encounters can't be overstated. and because people will remember that all their life. I mean, we met, they got married, they'll be talking about that forever. And you facilitated that.
Yeah. We have a young man that works in our food truck, has worked there for a while. He's decided to enter the seminary.
Oh,
So
there
he
you
tried
go.
to turn in his resignation, which, of course, it's wonderful. And I told him, I said, Matthew, at some point when you become a priest, at some point in some homily someday, you have to mention that you worked in a bar's food truck, and some life lesson take away from that. But
Right.
that's just cool.
Well, no, that's the thing is like I said, that's why I'm not certain that this hospitality instinct as it's manifested this way isn't being divinely enabled along. It's appropriate that it gets listed among spiritual gifts, because done that way and with that level of detail and with that and facilitating those type of interactions, someone entering divine service comes out of that. And I mean, think about there's a sense in which we can even get more nerdy if we want to. There's the idea of the sacramental understanding of things, how certain things that we think are somewhat trivial or they're just business or it's just a bar. No, it's facilitating sacramental encounters. I mean, the great sacraments of the church. I mean, among those being marriage and ministry and so forth. And like how you facilitated, how this hospitality moment, this hospitality space is enabling sacraments occurring in a sense.
It's pretty wild.
I know. Anyway.
Pretty deep there. That's true.
Well, I like going there because my hope is that others will see it that way. We don't have enough spaces like that. And again, I'm very encouraged when I see young people now somewhat rebelling against a lot of the things that have disconnected us from each other. I'm starting to hear of young people that are trying to go all retro because it's cool, but trying to find, a flip phone on the market because they know iPhones have basically disconnected everybody from everybody else. And so just staring at your screens has just completely created this isolation moment. And we have these level of despair, the despair quotient in the culture is at unbelievable levels. And a lot of that is due to the fact of just all the ways in which we disconnect from each other. Having spent a lot of time in the fire service, I'm always struck by how firefighters have an advantage amongst other first responders and other places that interact with the trauma of life. They have an advantage in that they do work as a crew. Many law enforcement officers will ride in singular, in a car, by themselves. Although, if you see a couple of cops, next to each other in the median, they're conferring over dinner. Mm-hmm. And so, but nevertheless, the firefighters who get back from the call, they all sit around the table. And the table is the most sacred piece of furniture within a fire station, because everything about the architecture of a fire station all points toward the table. So it's not just their kitchen, it's not just their quarters, it's not just their training area, it's not just their television. Everything moves toward the table. And so they come and they sit around the table, and that's where they talk about the stuff that they've encountered. That's why they develop dark humor that way. And they start joking about things, and they may say, hey, you need to do this better next time when we go out, to the young rookie or whatever, because that sense of community makes them talk, in a sense. And for the rest of us, it's very tempting. You ever go to a restaurant, you see couples sitting there at a table, they're both staring at their phones? Mm-hmm. It's very tempting. And the idea that you facilitate a place where people will come, set it aside, interact with each other, and you don't know what encounters might happen. It may result in sacraments for their life.
I like it.
I know, right? So right now, the way the Thirsty Pig is right now, you completed that roofing project in March. Any other things that are coming up?
No, we've been very fortunate to make some good contacts in the music world, and typically we've been hiring local bands, but this year we've got several bands from like Louisiana, Florida, New York.
Really?
Some larger acts coming. I mean, nothing crazy. It's
right,
still
right,
a
right.
small venue, but some really cool music coming up. And I really, you know, just some parking lot work as far as physical improvements, but
Right.
you know, just trying to keep it going.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and I'm glad I found it, and I think I'm hoping that more people continue to not only find the thirsty pig, but that it inspires someone else to say, okay, I'd like to see this maybe in their community further out, because your vision for starting that was the folklore was too far away. Folklore actually happens to be pretty close to my house,
Yeah,
but folklore was too far away. There may be in others who you've inspired to say, I love going to Thirsty Pig, but it's pretty far away from where I am too.
sure.
So they may wind up starting something similar in Ozark or Enterprise or whatever.
I still say, you know, there's room for more craft beer tap rooms in Dothan. You know,
Right.
somebody said that there was a brewery or something open up, and they wondered if I was concerned. You know, is it going to take away? I'm like, no, gosh, let's get a bunch of these places
Right.
close by. You've been to any big city, and you go downtown, and you kind of walk from bar to bar, or brewery to brewery, or
Mm-hmm.
tap room to tap room, whatever the nomenclature may be.
Right.
But you know, it becomes a fun thing. It's not competition. There's enough craft beers out there. We could all sell different stuff. It's cool. So
Well, that's why. Well, you're touching on something that I again learned in my ecclesiology or doctrine of the church class. One of the things that came out of that was this. Again, Starbucks. The biography of Starbucks. They said they wanted to be quality controls, and they wanted to remain the third place. And both of those are now interesting because I now come across Starbucks where people don't think of it as a gourmet coffee house, and there are some Starbucks I've seen that have only a drive-through. Like you completely abandon your founding ideology. But one of the things they said was their view was we'll always keep every coffee shop a certain size because beyond that you lose the third place. And so I thought that's how they took over the world, in a sense, by instead of following the normal American model of it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, bigger is better. We need to just have many.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are places and there are cities I go to where it seems like a Starbucks on every corner, and you would think that's oversaturation, but they're all full.
Right.
And it struck me, okay, if I really wanted to win a culture, if I really wanted to transform a culture, would I want a community with would I want a community with a 4,000 member church or a 4,000 member churches? You know, I would just have them everywhere.
Right. Right.
And so if I wanted a culture where people were more connected and they talked to people more, do I want a Walmart size, tap room? That seems like, wherever that person could sit at that end and that person could sit at that end, and there's at least 50 yards between them. Or do I want a intimate, family-like pub space in, all over town?
Sure.
So no one's ever at a loss for where they can go.
Yeah.
On Friday night.
I think that'd be great. Honestly, I mean, we need more spaces for people to connect.
I think that hospitality instinct, it touches on something that we're very lacking, and I'm really glad that you did yours.
No, thank you.
So thank you for coming and talk with me.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. It was fun. My first podcast.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. You're helping me, become better at having these conversations also.
Well, thanks, Father.
Yeah, thank you very much.